smiling. If I drink in there, I'm buying. And I know there's no denying. It's a beautiful day to send this up.
It is a beautiful day, isn't it?
Yes, and I know who this is. This is Michael Bublé.
Michael Bublé. You knew that. You knew that.
It's Bubble.
He's messing with
I know him well. It's really Bubble. Change it to Bublé.
Okay. See what he says about that. Good morning. You're watching Fox and Friends First on this Wednesday. I'm Jillian Mealy.
I'm Rob Schmidt. Thanks for getting up early with us. We begin with the battle at the border today. A new wave of migrants arriving in Tijuana, Mexico, hours after President Trump vows an immediate response to what he considers a disgraceful ruling on his asylum order.
Ray Bogan joins us live from Washington as we learn of a potential soldier shift. Good morning, Ray.
Rob and Jillian, good morning. Every day near the San Ysidro Port of Entry in San Francisco, which is the biggest land port in the country, hundreds of migrants line up for their chance at an asylum hearing. Some are families seeking safety and economic opportunity, but Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen says some could be dangerous.
Some continue to report that the caravan is made up of mostly women and children. The reality is that the majority of the caravan that we see is made up of single adult males or teenage males. In addition, we have identified over 500 criminals, to include known gang members, contained in the flow of the caravan.
To try and stop or even curtail the caravan, President Trump wanted all migrants seeking asylum to make the request through port of entry and deny them a claim if they cross the border illegally. Federal Judge John Teagar from the U.S. District Court in San Francisco says the Trump proclamation deprives legitimate asylum claims. He wrote in his injunction Monday, the president may not rewrite the immigration laws to impose a condition that Congress has expressly forbidden. The president's reaction was blunt.
It's a disgrace. In my opinion, it's a disgrace what happens with the Ninth Circuit. We will win that case in the Supreme Court of the United States.
Now, the Department of Justice told Fox News our asylum system is broken and it is being abused by tens of thousands of meritless claims every year. As the Supreme Court affirmed this summer, Congress has given the president broad authority to limit or even stop the entry of aliens into this country. Now, Judge Teagar's ruling is a temporary restraining order, and both sides are due back in court December 19th. Jillian and Rob, back to you.
All right, we'll see what happens then. We'll continue to follow it. Thank you, Ray.
All right, some breaking election news overnight. Republican Representative Mia Love ended up losing her House seat. Democrat Ben McAdams defeating the two-term Congresswoman by just 694 votes. That is a close one in Utah. It took 2 weeks to settle this. Love has not yet conceded. She was the first black Republican woman elected to Congress. You remember, not too long ago, President Trump scolded her for declining his support in her re-election bid. Democrats will now hold a majority of at least 234 seats in the House.
Sparks fly at the final debate ahead of the runoff Senate election in Mississippi. Democrat Mike Espy calling out incumbent Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith after she was caught on video saying this. Republican Hyde-Smith apologizing for and defending those remarks before Espy took aim.
This comment was twisted and it was turned into a weapon to be used against me, a political weapon.
It's caused our state harm. It's given our state another black eye that we don't need.
President Trump is defending the Republican senator.
He made a statement which I know that she feels very badly about it, and it was just sort of said in jest, as she said, and she's a tremendous woman.
The Mississippi runoff election is next Tuesday.
Nancy Pelosi gains key endorsements in her bid for House Speaker. It's looking better and better for her. Ohio Democrat Marcia Fudge foregoing a potential challenge and vowing to support Pelosi instead. This, as former President Obama offers another vote of confidence.
I think Nancy Pelosi, when the history is written, will go down as one of the most effective legislative leaders that this country's ever seen.
Well, the former president calling Pelosi instrumental in advancing his political agenda. The show of support comes after 16 House Democrats publicly promised to oppose the California Congresswoman as House Speaker.
A new report reveals President Trump wanted to prosecute Hillary Clinton and former FBI Director James Comey last spring. According to the New York Times, former White House counsel Don McGahn warned the president he had no authority to issue the order, even suggesting it could get him impeached. The report coming to light as House Republicans prepare to hear testimony about the DOJ's investigation into alleged wrongdoing by the Clinton Foundation. It's scheduled for December 5th.
All right, in writing, President Trump officially answering Robert Mueller's questions about Russian election meddling. It is a major milestone in the special counsel investigation that could soon reach its end.
Leland Vittert is live in Washington with more on where the investigation goes from here. Good morning, Leland.
Morning, Jillian. Now it's up to Robert Mueller. And as they say in Washington, those that know aren't talking about his intentions. Here are the possibilities of where Team Mueller could go from here. They could review answers, ask for more information. Unclear if the White House will give it to them. Review answers, prepare, and then disclose their report to Congress. Compare answers with other respondents, decide where to go from there, subpoena the president, or some kind of combination thereof. Despite the White House's frustrations, this probe will likely continue until it reaches a natural end or the acting attorney general puts the brakes on it. The president remains unchanging on his feelings.
They're all finished. The written answers are finished. The lawyers have them. The written answers to the witch hunt that's been going on forever. No collusion, no nothing. They've been finished. Finished them yesterday. The lawyers have them. I assume they'll turn them in today or soon.
Speaking to those lawyers from Rudy Giuliani, it's been our position from the outset that much of what has been raised and asked raises serious constitutional issues and was beyond the scope of a legitimate inquiry. This remains our position today. The president has nonetheless provided unprecedented cooperation, the president's team referring in that sense to more than 30 witnesses and 1.4 million pages of material that have been turned over, including the president's written responses. Earlier this week, Jillian, you might remember the president indicated it's unlikely that he would sit down with Mueller's team for an in-person interview.
All right, Leland Vittert, live in Washington. Thank you. The Trump administration issuing new sanctions to punish Iran and Russia for an alleged scheme to send oil to the Assad regime. Officials say the countries funneled money from Iran to Russia to pay for oil ships heading to Syria. The Assad regime then transferred that money to fund the Hamas and Hezbollah terrorist groups.
Acting Attorney General Matt Whitaker spending the day here in New York City today. This morning, he'll speak to the Joint Terrorism Task Force and discuss national security efforts. After that, he'll tour the mail distribution center at JFK International Airport and give remarks on ways to combat the nation's deadly opioid crisis. Busy day before Thanksgiving.
Two lucky turkeys spared from the dinner table. President Trump pardoning peas and carrots at the annual White House event and issuing a warning that may have ruffled some feathers.
Even though peas and carrots have received a presidential pardon, I have warned them that House Democrats are likely to issue them both subpoenas.
Now the turkeys will retire at Virginia Tech. So nice life ahead of them.
Yeah,
nice turkey
for
life.
At least two of them.
Yeah.
All right, 9 minutes after the hour.
United States, and they're seeking asylum. They're not invading.
Let me respond to Juan's comments. First of all, we're the most welcoming country in this world. So enough. Seeking a better life doesn't qualify for asylum. So they're committing fraud. So that's just a stone cold fact.
Homan adding that nearly 91% of migrant asylum claims are denied.
Here's an interesting fact. Fewer Americans are renouncing their citizenship under President Trump than under former President Obama. According to the IRS, more than 1,100 people terminated their citizenship or legal residence status in the third quarter of this year. And that's actually a 20% decline from the same period in 2015 when Barack Obama was president. The Daily Caller reports less than 1,000 people abandoned their citizenship annually before President Obama took office.
Well, as we've been talking about, thousands of migrants are preparing to flood the southern border seeking asylum, which will likely overload the already backlogged courts.
Our next guest is a former ICE supervisor and Border Patrol agent who has a few ideas for a potential solution. Jason Piccolo joins us live to explain. Thanks for coming on this morning. First off, I want to ask you just to kind of describe the situation we're seeing at the border right now and what impact this judge's order this week is going to have on asylums in general.
Well, what's going to happen now is you're going to have the same smugglers and traffickers that exploited the system before are going to continue to do that. It's going to push that traffic to the poorest areas that are dangerous for the migrants coming across.
So what do you suggest be done then? I know you have a couple of things in mind.
Sure, I think we should do a port court. It's almost like a one-stop shop. It's an expedited asylum review. So let's say you have a smaller port of entry like Tecate, which is adjacent to the San Diego and Otay Mesa ports of entry, and you set up a court there. You have an asylum officer and you have an immigration judge established in the same location. The asylee comes in, claims asylum, and then if the claim is merit, it goes on to the immigration judge, and it all happens within the same day.
But that's more, I mean, that's more resources than from Border Patrol, correct? And do we have that at our disposal to use?
Actually, it's not taking resources from the Border Patrol now.
Okay, so let's take a look at let's look at the specifics here. If we can pull up a graphic, it'll show you that you would like to see what 10 in Mexico, 10 of these, I guess, asylum judges, right? One in Panama, one in Costa Rica, one in Nicaragua, Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, Belize, and this will help to, I guess, alleviate the congestion of this problem that we're seeing at the border, right?
Sure. Well, that's another idea. That's part of the port process. Plus, we could also forward deploy an IJ, immigration judge, and asylum officers down to those consulate offices to adjudicate those claims.
What's the reality of something like this happening?
It's going to be tough. You know, absent doing a immigration reform, it's going to be really tough to get anything moving right now.
When you hear that, I mean, a lot of Democrats, they keep pushing this idea that these are people seeking asylum, that these are just people running from problems, and we're asylum granting nation here in the United States. But then you look at the numbers and how the number of people seeking asylum is exploding. It seems pretty clear to most people that this is being taken advantage of. What do you say?
It is. Now, 85 to 90% of asylum claims are adjudicated meritless. Now, this is the same as it was back in 2015 when I worked for the Homeland Security's human smuggling cell. 85 to 90% meritless. So, yes, people are exploiting it.
And then they don't get in, right? I mean, they say something like 90% of them are declined. But I guess they just try to get in illegally and then they claim asylum if they get caught. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Jason, thank you so much for clearing some of that up. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
17 minutes after the hour. Forget helping average Americans. The liberal governor who just set aside $2 million of taxpayer dollars to help forge signatures on ballots and registration forms in both the 2016 and 2018 elections. Their reward was cash and cigarettes. Officials say they're confident that the fake names did not affect any actual votes.
A Democratic congressman wants recreational marijuana legalized across the U.S. In an op-ed, Joe Kennedy writes, quote, "Our federal government has ceded its responsibility to thoughtfully regulate marijuana. I believe we must implement strong, clear, and fair federal guidelines." The Massachusetts lawmaker speaking out as his state began marijuana sales this week. 33 states and Washington, D.C. have legalized marijuana in some form.
All right, the University of Nebraska hiring its first ever diversity and inclusion chancellor. Marco Barker will reportedly earn $250,000 a year to shape new policies and practices at this public school. Critics worry that the position will lead to less qualified faculty members getting hired just for the sake of diversity.
All right, if you plan on avoiding a mess in the kitchen tomorrow, we've got you covered.
Tracy Carrasco from our sister network Fox Business here with more on your Thanksgiving options. So we have options, Tracy.
There are lots of options. If you don't want to cook, you want to go to a restaurant, there are a number of restaurants that will be open. Let's throw up a list for you to take a look. Applebee's, Bob Evans, Boston Market, Cracker Barrel, Denny's, Golden Corral, IHOP. You can see the list goes on and on. There are a number of these. Now, a new survey by the National Retail Association says that about 9%, that's 30 million people, will go out to a restaurant on Thanksgiving instead of cooking at home. But I want to also mention some retailers. We know that a lot of retailers will be opening up on Thanksgiving. You can enjoy that pumpkin pie and then go get some deals. But there are a number of them, about 70, that say they're not going to open up. They're adamant about keeping their doors closed, making sure that their employees can spend time with their families. These are the stores closed on Thanksgiving. You can see Home Depot, TJ Maxx, Nordstrom, Costco. Just wait a day. They'll be open on Black Friday.
We can just all go to Tracy's for Thanksgiving because she is going to be cooking Thanksgiving dinner.
Yes.
That's a fantastic idea.
I agree.
Come on over.
The whole world is invited.
Bring a snack just in case.
Okay, so what else does Amazon have now? Actual dinners?
Yes, they have actual dinners. You can order up the whole turkey feast through Whole Foods, but they're also offering with their Prime Now delivery. Maybe you forgot something at the grocery store. Maybe you just don't want to brave the crowds. They will be delivering up until 2 p.m. on Thanksgiving Day with that Prime Now service. So it's either 1 or 2 hour delivery, depending on where you live. Chicago, a number of the other big cities offering that. Even in some cases, they will bring you beer and wine if you run out or forget to buy it.
Wow.
So, yes, Amazon saving the day.
What don't they have?
Tracy, thank you so much.
Thanks.
24 minutes after the hour, dozens of potential Democratic candidates throwing their name in the ring for 2020.
Critically re-examine ICE and its role.
Please get up in the face of some Congress people.
When they go low, we kick them.
But do Democrats need somebody that they don't want in order to win? We debate that coming up next.
And as we head to break, we want to know what you're thankful for this Thanksgiving.
California, but the rain also means a big risk of flooding and mudslides. The weather shift comes as we learn that 82 people are now confirmed dead, 700 still missing there in Butte County. New video shows brave pilots risking their lives to the south in the Woolsey fire near Malibu in Southern California, using a helicopter to rescue 3 people and their dogs trapped in all of that smoke. Interior Secretary Ryan Zinke, who toured the damage last week, now is blaming radical environmental groups for contributing to these fires by stopping forest management from doing their jobs properly. Zinke saying they, quote, would rather burn down the entire forest than cut a single tree. Officials are bracing for cold weather during tomorrow's Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade here in New York City. The giant balloons are supposed to be blown up tonight, but strong winds could force them to stay grounded. Thousands of federal and local officers will be on patrol during tomorrow's parade. Explosive sniffing dogs will also be on hand for the first time. Police say there are no credible threats to the parade, aside from that wind, which could wreak some havoc. The Thanksgiving travel rush off to a good start with relatively few flight delays and cancellations. Of the 28,000 commercial flights in the U.S. every day, only about 4,000 flights have been delayed for the big travel day. Just over 200 flights canceled since Tuesday. But if you're headed somewhere cold for the holiday, you might want to pack a hat and some gloves. Janice Dean is here, and man, is it going to be cold for this Thanksgiving, huh, Janice?
We could, tie some records here in New York City for the second coldest on record. Let's take a look at it. There's your parade forecast. 21 degrees tomorrow. That is cold, and with wind chills in the teens and single digits. So not only New York, but up towards Boston, Great Lakes could see some of the coldest air we have seen on record. So there's your parade forecast. And we've got winds from the northwest 10 to 25 miles per hour. So yes, that is going to be a factor with the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. And if they lower those balloons or they don't use them at all. So here's the climatology. Back in 1901, we had 26 as the coldest high temperature, and we might tie that. So, stay tuned. Here's your forecast highs on Thursday. The good news is we're going to rebound those temperatures as we get into Friday and Saturday. So it's really just Thursday, Thanksgiving, we'll get the really cold air. Also want to make mention that we have a lot of rain in the forecast for the West Coast. This is a good news, bad news situation. They need the rain to help firefighters with all of the incredible wildfire damage that we've seen across northern and central California. However, it is going to present the threat for flooding and mudslides and debris flows. So when you've got inches of rain and parts of northern and central California, as well as the snowpack that's going to move in. That could potentially be a problem, so we'll watch for that. There's your weather travel delays. The good news is not a whole lot of travel problems. It's just really relegated towards the East Coast and the Northeast. And man, it is going to be cold tomorrow. Ooh. Yeah, that's why we're going to be watching the parade inside.
And this wind. What if there's not much of a parade because of the wind?
Well, we'll see. We're right on the threshold, so we're hoping to get some balloons out there, right?
Yeah.
But good news for the marching bands, because they can continue to march.
They're going to be running. All right, Janice, thanks so much.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Fastest parade ever. Thank you,
Happy
Janice.
Thanksgiving.
Love you
Appreciate
guys.
All right, so the field for 2020 is wide open for Democrats, but many of the top contenders are pushing radical rhetoric to make a name for themselves, like this.
Reality as a country is literally on a knife's edge.
Got to critically re-examine ICE and its role, and we need to probably think about starting from scratch.
Let's just start with the hard truth about our criminal justice system. It's racist.
Please get up in the face of some Congress people.
When they go low, we kick them.
So if Democrats really want to retake the White House in 2020, are these kind of ideas what the party needs? Here now to debate is Democratic political commentator Jonathan Harris and Republican strategist Chris Nywame. Thank you both for joining us. Appreciate it. Jonathan, I'll start with you. You know, you hear that stuff and it really turns a lot of people off.
It does. I do think that there's a lot of progressive elements to what they're saying. Certainly looking at ICE and looking at the role of ICE and the way that they're handling certain situations, looking at getting rid of student loan debt. Definitely not, no violence toward political leaders, but definitely pushing back against, some of their positions. I think those are important, but if they get misinterpreted, it does put some people off, absolutely.
Chris, what do you have to say about that? Is it misinterpretation, or is it just people are kind of listening to what they're actually saying?
Well, I think one component is you obviously need to grab attention, and that's one way to do it. And I think that the primary process will be long, so people will get a chance to look at different candidates. If I was coaching the Democrats, I would say they need to not think so hard. Look at some of these people. I don't like their politics per se, but someone like an O'Rourke or a Gillum, someone that can just connect with people and get them off the couch and go vote.
Jonathan, would you say that the problem for the Democrats right now is there really is no clear front runner at this point? There was a Politico poll from the beginning of November, which had Joe Biden in the lead at 26% of preferences anyway. Bernie Sanders, 19%. Beto O'Rourke at 8%, followed by Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, and Cory Booker. I mean, it's one of those things like quality over quantity. Right now, you've got the quantity, but there's no real front runner.
It looks in many ways the way that the Republican race looked in 2016 early on. There were a lot of different candidates, and you couldn't really tell who was going to be the front runner. And I think as time went on, obviously Donald Trump emerged as the front runner, and I think the same thing will happen with the Democrats. I mean, Biden is pretty far out in front, and I think for me personally, I like the idea of a Biden-Kamala Harris ticket. I think it covers getting back some of the middle class that maybe the Democrats lost in 2016, but it also covers a more like urban, progressive part of the country that would gravitate toward Kamala Harris. And even though she's at about 40%, I think combining those two things is a pretty tough ticket to beat.
But what if Biden doesn't run, Jonathan?
That would be a problem. That would definitely be a problem, because I think most people are deferring to Biden running and assuming that he will run. That will be difficult if he decides not to run.
Chris, how dangerous is it to go based off assumptions right now, assuming that someone like Biden would run?
It's very difficult. I mean, people literally laughed, including our former president, about the idea of a candidate coming from the outside, and Donald Trump just dominated. I mean, you look at what happened with, Jeb Bush, who was this clear front runner, and, the president just completely wiped him out. So I think overthinking it's not the way to go. And, the process sort of emerges. They go through this process. But I think the far left extreme sort of thing, it might not work. I think they shouldn't think as hard and probably look at someone like Beto O'Rourke or someone that just get new people off the couch. Those are people that I've spoke to out in those key states, and that's what they said. I want someone that's just sort of new, so that maybe they shouldn't overthink it. And I won't bill the Democrats for this insight.
And maybe rethinking the messaging, right? Maybe something that's not quite as kick them, something that's not as violent.
Well, Trump liked that rhetoric, so I mean, it seemed to work well for him.
Chris, final thought?
Well, I think it's definitely a new time, but I think the president's had a lot of success, too, in terms of delivering on economics. So the Democrats are going to have to contend with numbers that they don't really want to look at, which in terms of jobs and things like that. So it'll be interesting.
We're seeing deportation.
Carly Shimkus with Fox News Headlines 24/7, Sirius XM 115 is here with reaction to this announcement from New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy. And it's not the first time we've heard stories like this.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. So the governor made that announcement just hours before a federal judge barred the Trump administration from denying asylum to anyone crossing the border illegally. The governor saying families who came to New Jersey for a better life do not deserve to be torn apart by the federal government's cruel and discriminatory policies. But some residents feel that money, that $2 million, should go to them. Vincent on Facebook saying homeless in the streets, vests sleeping in the cold, drug addicts with no hope, unreal. You can do better, New Jersey. Bill also chiming in on Facebook with a post saying, I wonder if he asked the people of New Jersey if they wanted their hard-earned tax dollars going for that. Just saying. And Joe also chiming in saying, how about putting that money into the state pension plan for your firefighters, cops, nurses, and teachers, etc. So a major debate over this $2 million happening in the Garden State.
That is interesting. And this next story I find to be hilarious. Everybody loves to eat Chick-fil-A.
Oh, yeah.
But these schools don't want it because of the politics.
That's right. When chicken meets politics, that's the name of this story right here. Rider University was thinking about putting a new restaurant on campus. So they asked students what restaurant they'd want to have join the campus community. Most students said Chick-fil-A. But then, like you said, school officials said that ain't happening because, quote, their corporate values have not sufficiently progressed enough to align with those of riders. Now, Chick-fil-A is controversial among the LGBT community and activists because of its anti-same-sex marriage stance. But some people on Facebook say that that's not fair to the students, like Scott, who says, so you practice inclusiveness by excluding Chick-fil-A. And then another Twitter user chiming in saying, why bother asking students when you have an agenda? So another controversy ensues.
I've never heard of Rider University. I'm trying to. It's in Jersey, I guess.
Yeah, it's in Lawrence.
It's like right down the road.
I'm from New Jersey, and it is a big
how many kids go there?
there.
Like 10? I mean,
No, it's pretty.
Is it a big school?
Yeah. I mean, it's not big, but it's out there.
I've never heard of the school. I'm looking at it like, where is this place?
Okay. That's all right. That's all right.
Okay, so there's this turkey challenge. So a lot of people may not know what this is. So can you explain what kids are sending these messages to their parents about?
I sure can. Let's see if it's going to work. Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So a viral social media challenge is targeting moms ahead of Turkey Day. Can you believe it? Kids are sending their moms prank text messages asking how long they should cook a 25-pound turkey in the microwave, and responses have ranged from I'm disappointed in you to I should have never let you leave the house. I even saw one mom saying you should never get married to her daughter.
So are you on drugs or are you?
Yeah, exactly. Well, listen, Turkey Ball or Butterball, that's the name of the turkey company, right? They're throwing the ultimate curveball. They tweeted the 25-pound turkey challenge is a little ambitious, but a 12-pound turkey is no challenge at all. So they suggest that you should cook it 4 minutes per pound. So it's actually possible.
In the microwave?
Yeah. Can you believe it?
It would be vile.
It would be so dry.
It would be so dry.
This just doesn't look natural, right?
Simple Google search. 4,000 students at Rider University. My high school was bigger than that.
He's still on this.
I never heard of
He gets hooked onto the weirdest things sometimes.
I Google everything.
Rider University, if you're listening, send Rob a hat.
There you go. Yes, and a shirt. He'll wear it everywhere.
There you go.
Want to bet?
Thanks, Carly.
Thanks, Carly.
Thank you.
All right, a record number of people hitting the roads, the skies, all sorts of the rails this Thanksgiving. What you need to know as you gear up for the Great Escape.
Sebastian Gorka is going to be dropping by. Also, Alan Dershowitz. We're going to talk to him about the president submitting those questions, answers to Mr. Mueller's points of view. Also, Rachel Campos Duffy and her husband, Sean Duffy, are going to join us. We're going to talk about the season of Thanksgiving. And an incredible story of hope from the California wildfire. A man's childhood home, seen in the top picture, was burned down to what you see in the bottom picture, but he was able to find something very important in the rubble. The ring, that's a ring he had bought to propose to his girlfriend. The couple's going to join us live with their story, and Robin Gillian, apparently now she knows that he was about to pop the question.
Oh, what a story. Oh, I can't wait to watch that.
That's a good one. Steve, thanks.
You bet.
All right, thousands of Americans Let's say it again. Thousands of Americans hitting the roads and skies and rails for Thanksgiving in what's predicted to be the highest travel volume in more than a dozen years.
Carrie Drew from our affiliate in New York City is live at LaGuardia Airport with a look at the crowds this morning. Good morning, Carrie.
Hey, good morning to you, Rob and Jillian. We're here inside Terminal B at LaGuardia Airport, the American Airlines terminal. So far, so good. Things seem to be moving pretty well. I'll step out of the way and show you. No lines to check in at this hour. It's still early, though, of course, and no lines for security either. Of course, we are expecting more people to arrive throughout the day. This is one of the busiest travel days of the entire year. 54 million people expected to travel at least 50 miles from home this Thanksgiving. That's a 4.8% increase over last year and the highest number of travelers since 2005. AAA attributes the overall increase in travel this week to higher wages and more disposable income. The majority of travelers, about 48.5 million Americans, will be driving to their holiday destinations, but millions of people will be flying as well. The TSA actually projects this year will be the busiest Thanksgiving for air travel ever. The good news is this morning here at LaGuardia, flights seem to be pretty much all on time, and everyone seems to be in pretty good spirits. In fact, I just caught up with a guy. He told me he's heading home to Atlanta, and he had a big smile on his face because he's so excited for his aunt's broccoli and cheese casserole. So even though he's here at the airport about to fly, very excited. Can't wait to get home. That's the latest live from here at LaGuardia Airport this morning. Rob and Jillian, I'll send things back to you.
Already hungry thinking about it. Carrie,
I like
thank
broccoli cheese casserole. That's good stuff. Thanks, Carrie.
All right, a busy weekend expected at the box office.
If you and your family are planning on heading to the movie theaters this holiday weekend, Fox News contributor Kevin McCarthy is here with more on which films might be worth watching. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, good morning to you, Rob and Jillian, and happy early Thanksgiving to you and your families. Yeah, there's lots of films that are coming out and they're already in theaters this week that I think people should go see. The first one I want to mention is this movie called Green Book. Now, this film is one of the best films of the year. It's going to be a massive Oscar contender. This is starring Viggo Mortensen and Mahershala Ali, and centers around a true story of friendship. And Mahershala's character is a musician who wants to take a music tour in the Deep South in the American 1960s. So he hires Viggo Mortensen's character to be his driver and security while navigating through the South. And the whole idea of the Green Book element and the whole idea of social commentary and race play into this film is directed by Peter Farrelly. Now, this is interesting because this filmmaker co-directed Dumb and Dumber, There's Something About Mary, Me, Myself, and Irene, and now he's doing this on his own without his brother Bobby for the first time in his first feature film. One of the best films of the year, 4.5 out of 5 for Green Book.
All right, so a lot of people talking about Creed 2. What do you think about that?
Jillian, this movie is amazing. I saw it last night for the second time with my wife, and we were just cheering in the theater. This is Michael B. Jordan returning as Adonis Creed. Now, this is a big battle. If you're a big fan of the Rocky franchise, Rocky IV had the major fight between Ivan Drago and Apollo Creed. Now, we all know how that fight ended. Apollo Creed was killed in that fight. Now, in Creed II, his son, Adonis Creed, Michael B. Jordan's character, is taking on Ivan Drago's son, Victor Drago, for an epic battle, and that's kind of the whole point of this film. It's very well done, a solid sequel, maybe not as masterful as Creed 1, but definitely a solid sequel for Rocky fans. I gave it a 4 out of 5, and big shout out to Dolph Lundgren, who does a great job as Ivan Drago, and the actor who plays his son, Victor Drago, is actually a Romanian boxer named Florian.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, we got a couple of cartoon movies next. Ralph Breaks the Internet.
Yes, so this is, again, a bit of a step down from Wreck-It Ralph. I loved Wreck-It Ralph, one of my favorite animated movies to come out in recent years. This is a sequel where Ralph and Vanellope, the two characters, venture their way into the internet to try and save Vanellope's game. Now, Vanellope's voiced by Sarah Silverman, Ralph voiced by John C. Reilly. A solid film, but one of the best scenes in the film is one of the best scenes of the year, where the character encounters 14 Disney princesses, and 11 of the original voices of all of those princesses returned to do this film, including Ariel from Little Mermaid, also the characters from Frozen and Tangled. So make sure if you're a big Disney fan, you'll like that. It's not as great as Wreck-It Ralph, but definitely a solid sequel. 3.5 out of 5 for that.
So I feel like you can never go wrong with The Grinch, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree with you. This is the classic story, but told in a fresh way. So Illumination Studios, who did Despicable Me and the Minions, they've brought this film to the big screen now as a